LBC. From Global, leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald. Good evening, everybody. And Donald Trump weighing into the Brexit debate today in no uncertain terms. We'll talk about that over the course of the next hour. But, of course, it's the events in Parliament that are dominating the week. Last night, very, very tough result for Mrs May and the government, leading many today to say, is this the week that Brexit died? Well, perhaps today she's having a slightly better day. To help us through all of this and try and explain it, because, gosh, it is complicated, is LBC's political editor, Theo Asherwood. Theo, what's happening today?
The last result was the key result that you just heard. If you're tuning in, Yvette Cooper, Hilary Benn had an amendment which in effect would take parliamentary time reserved for the government and give it to MPs, handing the control of the Brexit process from the executive, from Theresa May to MPs. And the government went and won that vote by 314 plays 312, a massive result for the Prime Minister. Right now, we have a vote on an amendment tabled by Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour front bench. It will not pass. It does, in effect, back an extension of Article 50, but it takes the deadlines set by the Prime Minister out of the equation. Now, just to remind listeners what happened last night, Theresa May said that if MPs voted for her deal, meaningful vote 3, next week she would be prepared to go for a short technical extension. But if they didn't vote for her deal next week, if again it failed, she would have to go to the European Council and say that she needed a much longer extension, possibly 2 years. That would take us to 5 years leaving the European Union.
I know.
5 years after 17.4 million people voted to leave the European Union. Donald Tusk, the President of the European Council, backed that up this morning with a tweet saying that if the UK wants to revise its Brexit strategy, he was all ears. Come over and have a chat with us and we'll sort it out, a much longer extension. Right now, Theresa May has to get the main motion through. And as I said, that is a short, sharp extension if MPs vote for her deal at meaningful vote 3.
And the other big event today that I've seen concerns a second referendum. The People's Vote campaign, Sir Keir Starmer, the Labour Party. And we've heard, endlessly for the last couple of years, we hear people saying there must be a second referendum. And I keep saying there's no real public demand for it. Well, it looks like, bizarrely, did the People's Vote today not say they did? We're going to cross to the House of Commons.
The ayes to the right, 302, and the noes to the left, 318.
Theo, what do you make of that?
To be expected, Jeremy Corbyn, Labour front bench amendment, as I said, to back an extension to Article 50, but to take the Prime Minister's deadlines out of it, falls by 318, plays 302, government majority 16. And now we're just going to, I think it's probably worth tuning back in, Nigel, to hear whether John Bercow goes to Chris Bryant to move his amendment to scrap meaningful vote 3.
Okay.
Let's have a listen.
We're going back to the Speaker.
The question is the main motion in the name of the government. Members of the government, as many as are there to be, say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. Division, clear the lobby.
So this is the main motion. Chris Bryant, who had an amendment down, he's dropped it. Yeah. He had an amendment down which would in effect stop meaningful vote 3 taking place next week. He's decided not to push that to a vote in the House of Commons this evening. He could have done so for all sorts of reasons. And so we go to the main motion. This is Theresa May's plan to extend Article 50 for a short period of time, up until June the 30th, if and only if MPs vote for her deal next week. That's on the 30th. She would then go to the European Council on the Thursday afternoon meetings and say to Donald Tusk, listen, I have a deal. I've got something in place, but I need just a short extension to make sure that we get all the relevant other pieces of legislation through the House of Commons in place, and that we can leave and have, as she would term it, an orderly Brexit. But, and there is a warning, within this main motion. If MPs do not vote for it, then she will have no choice but to go back to the European Council and ask for a much lengthier extension. 2 years would take us through to March 2021, and the argument there would be, well, this is from the Prime Minister, I've lost control of the process, we're then into second referendum territory, we're into territory of a general election, this is your last chance to have Brexit.
That's going to be the choice in the end,
Yes.
isn't it? You know, that's what the ERG and some of the Labour Eurosceptics and indeed even the DUP, that's the ultimate choice they're going to face next week or maybe even the week after.
Absolutely. And what these votes so far, and it's yet to be seen whether the government will win this, because the ERG, the European Research Group, have a free vote on this main motion, whereas previously they have their own internal whipping operation. The ERG have been whipping against all of the amendments. The Speaker didn't select any pro-Brexit amendments.
It's worth just mentioning that there was one particular amendment in. It was a cross-party amendment signed by 127 MPs and the Speaker didn't pick it.
No, he didn't pick it, and it caused a right old rumpus in the House of Commons. Mark Francois, other members of the ERG, absolutely furious with the Speaker, because the Speaker did a nice video, House of Commons video, shot straight down the barrel and said, well, if you have cross-party support, then that's something that goes in your favour. If a large number of MPs support your motion, that's something that goes in your favour if you want to have an amendment. And then Mark Francois read out, all of the criteria the Speaker had set himself, but he still didn't select the amendment in the name of a couple of Conservative backbenchers to rule out a second referendum. And of course, the debate has been well rehearsed. There's always been an argument that John Bercow has never looked kindly on Brexiteers, Conservative Brexiteers. He is, of course,
I think it's more than an argument, Theo, but you're putting it in a neutral way if you possibly can. Stay with us, Theo. We'll get the result on the government motion. So is this, folks, the week that Brexit died? Because that's what was being said last night by media observers the world over. And I have to say, I don't think it is. I think there are several reasons, one of which is it may seem impossible, but there's been some movement today. She lost by 230 votes. She then lost by 149 votes. And I think, as Theo's explained to you, when it comes down to the wire, Tory sceptics will be given the choice. It's my deal, or it's a very long extension. It's the European elections. It could lead to a split in the party and maybe even a second referendum. I wonder what the public think of this, whether they think Brexit is dying. Chris, there's a new caller from Wiltshire. Good evening, Chris.
Hi, good evening, Nigel. Thank you for having me.
So have you been watching all of this week?
I have been, yeah. And if I'm honest, I think Theresa May is now starting to get some momentum, especially with the results we've heard of in the last 10, 15 minutes.
So could she still get this deal through, Chris?
I think she can. I think there's people out there that may have other opinions. But one of the questions I would ask is, obviously, with the referendum that has gone on recently, or not so recently, where there was only a 4% difference, obviously Theresa has just won by 2 votes. Which is
point naught something of a percent, yeah.
Yeah, 0.3%. So does that mean that is not a majority, so it's then going to get put to the vote? I'm being a bit tongue-in-cheek here, but...
I know you are.
Something I would like to say is that Theo mentioned earlier that there's a lack of authority at the minute from the Prime Minister. Having watched the House of Commons last night, I think actually the lack of authority comes from the Speaker, the heckling that goes on in Parliament. So, normal people, day to day, we're getting annoyed with Brexit. Actually, having watched it last night, it's almost like a circus. And we're going on, that knife crime is increasing, etc. All this is discipline. Children watch the TV, and if they watched it last night, what they will have seen is a house full of ill-disciplined politicians heckling the Prime Minister, who's obviously, she's got something wrong with her throat or her voice. She's struggling to project her voice, and she has been talked over by multiple people.
All right, so you thought, Chris, it looked pretty bad, yeah?
Last night, I think, to the general public, it looked absolutely awful and embarrassing as a country, yeah.
Interesting point. Chris, thank you. And Chris raises a point there, Theo, because we had cabinet ministers last night not supporting a 3-line whip, and yet they're still in office 24 hours later.
Yes, they abstained.
How unusual is that?
It's extraordinary. four cabinet ministers. David Gauke, the Justice Secretary, Amber Rudd, Work and Pensions Secretary, Greg Clark, Business Secretary, all of them defied the whip. They said they'd been given a pass by number 10 to abstain in the vote. Huge row with the chief whip. They'd been apparently conversations had been overheard between one or two of them and the chief whip that they had to vote in support of the Prime Minister, but didn't apply, and therefore they've kept their jobs. Interestingly, just very quickly on the Yvette Cooper Hilary Benn amendment, which would have handed control,
which would have been unconstitutional anyway. So why did the Speaker pick that? I mean, that's unconstitutional, surely.
Well, he did pick it. That goes back to the Dominic agreement. Anyway, it didn't pass, and the reason it didn't pass, Nigel?
Go on.
Labour MPs. 6 Labour MPs in Leave constituencies went and voted against Yvette Cooper and Nick Bowles' plan to hand control of Brexit to the House of Commons, to MPs in the House of Commons. Their names: Kevin Barron, Rother Valley, that's a constituency in the north of England. Ronnie Campbell, Blythe Valley, that's up in northeast. Caroline Flint, Don Valley, Yorkshire, if I remember. Kate Hoey, of course, Vauxhall. She battles with a
independently minded, we'll call it. Yep.
Constituency Labour Party on a daily basis. John Mann up in Bassett Law. In Nottinghamshire, my old patch as a junior reporter, and then Graham Stringer, Blakely and Broughton in the northwest, all of them saving the Prime Minister from losing control of the Brexit process.
We're going to get the result. We're going to get the result of the big vote, the government vote, but it's going to be a few minutes. So for now, you're listening to the Nigel Farage Show. It's 6:15. Let's have the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
MPs have rejected a series of amendments this afternoon calling for a second Brexit referendum and delays to the EU withdrawal process. They're now voting on the main government motion to extend Article 50 past the 29th of March. The Labour MP Ruth Smeeth has resigned from the party's front bench for voting against a second referendum rather than abstaining. The Defence Secretary says the MOD will be paying the legal costs for a former British soldier facing murder and attempted murder charges over Bloody Sunday deaths in Northern Ireland. LBC weather: cloud, heavy rain and strong winds moving in from the west tonight, a low of 2 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. It's slow on the M20 eastbound after the removal of Operation Stack from Junction 8 for Leeds Castle to Junction 9 for Ashford. The M25 clockwise stays very slow from Junction 13 for Staines to Junction 14 for Heathrow after a car broke down earlier. There were long delays in Tottenham. Watermead Way is closed in both directions because of a police investigation between the Hale and Burdock Road. The recused in Walthamstow. Leabridge Road is closed in both directions because of an accident, and that's from Bromley Road to the Baker's Arms. Also in Walthamstow, it's very slow on Black Horse Road both ways after an investigation near the tube station earlier on. And the recused on the North Circular northbound from the Barking flyover to the Ilford flyover. That's after there was an accident earlier on.
This is LBC.
Oh, I found one of our new Vauxhall Griffin editions.
Yes. What comes as standard?
Standard? Well, alloy wheels, sat-nav, aircon, DAB radio, Bluetooth, smartphone projection and USB connection.
Wow. Is that everything?
Sorry, forgot the colour touchscreen.
Buy a new Griffin edition, Adam, Astra, Corsa or Mocha X Plus and get a whole host of features as standard. The Griffin edition range. All Griffin, no bull. Visit your nearest retailer now. Vauxhall, British brand since 1903. Participating retailers only. Limited units while stocks last.
You know your business, what keeps you up at night, and the moments that make it all worthwhile. You know your 5-year plan, and that you really want to be there in 2. We know we can help you get there. Barclays offers unsecured loans of up to £100,000 that can be with you in days or even hours. To apply for a loan that's right for your business, search Barclays Business Loans. Let's go forward. Subject to status, T's and C's apply, guarantee may be needed.
What's a smart way to visit Ireland? Fly Aer Lingus from London, and in less than 2 hours you can enjoy spectacular ocean views, fresh seafood and live traditional music pouring out of cosy pubs. Touch ancient stones and hear the local stories, or fly to Belfast and uncover the history of the Titanic. Fly from London Gatwick to Ireland from just $32.99 each way as part of a return trip. Smart books a great value spring break. Smart flies Aer Lingus. Book now at airlingus.com. Offer subject to conditions and availability.
Oh, Wi-Fi's rubbish! As a parent, nothing strikes fear into you like those words coming down the stairs. What can you do about a dodgy Wi-Fi signal? Turns out quite a lot. Because with BT Complete Wi-Fi, only we guarantee a signal in every room. So it's game on for Billy in his bedroom and you win precious dad points. It's $39.99 a month on an 18-month contract with $29.99 setup fee. BT customers can upgrade with BT Plus. BT, be there.
New customers, CPI increase starting 2020. $44.49 a month from month 19, up to 3 discs to guarantee Wi-Fi or £20 off your bill.
Are you buying a new home? Your mortgage company may just value from a desktop with no surveyor ever visiting the property. WeDoSurveys.com can help you choose the right property. As map chartered surveyors since 1983, we inspect around 10,000 properties every year. Visit WeDoSurveys.com for a free consultation and free Rick's Guide to Home Surveys. WeDoSurveys.com, your friend in the property business.
There's a new way to report non-emergency incidents or crimes to the Met Police. So if you've seen or been in a... or you've been the victim of a... maybe your... has been stolen, you can report it online at met.police.uk. It's quick, it's more convenient, and it's handled by the same team who answer our calls. Incident or crime? Tell us online. Metropolitan Police Service.
When you're out on the road, you need to know you can trust your brakes to keep you safe. If something doesn't feel right, it's best to get it checked. At QuickFit, we'll do a free check to make sure your brakes are working properly. And if not, we'll get them sorted. Just book online or visit your local QuickFit today and drive away happy.
I'm Peter Jones. I've worked with many businesses. They're all different. So why be shoehorned into accounting software that treats all businesses the same? Sage Business Cloud is different. It fits your business's ever-changing needs, like preparing for Making Tax Digital. With Sage, you're good to go. Business is about making wise choices. It's about being Sage.
Be ready for Making Tax Digital. Sign up for a free MTD consultation at sage.com/MTD.
Leading Britain's conversation, The Nigel Farage Show. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag FarageOnLBC.
We're waiting for a result in the House of Commons. It's the government motion on extending Article 50, provided that the government's withdrawal agreement has been passed, and the extension is for technical reasons to get the legislation through. So far this afternoon, things are going better for the government than they did last night, including a really, really crucial amendment that they won, and this was an amendment put down by Hilary Benn and Yvette Cooper that would have taken control of the whole process out of the hands of the executive and given it to Parliament, something that for the centuries our Parliament has worked has never happened. The government won it. They won it by a majority of 2, and they did it because 6 Labour MPs voted that way. So we'll go straight back to the Commons when we get the result. But a very interesting development today, and I'm joined here still by Theo Usherwood, LBC's political editor. The People's Vote campaign, and gosh, we've heard so much from them and so much about them, suddenly don't seem to want a people's vote. What's going on?
A very odd day for the People's Vote campaign, because they put out a press statement this afternoon saying now was not the time for MPs to demand a second referendum.
Yeah.
It was just simply wasn't the right time. Today was all about getting and securing an extension to Article 50. That didn't stop Sarah Wollaston, the now independent group MP for Totnes, former Conservative, of course, until she switched sides and resigned from the Conservative Party, from tabling her amendment. Now, Keir Starmer, the Shadow Brexit Secretary, stood up in the House of Commons today and said Labour MPs would not be supporting that amendment.
And once again, Sir Keir Starmer, the person who's been pushing hard for Labour to become a full-on second referendum party, so he changed his mind a bit today too.
Yes, so they said he followed the line of the People's Vote campaign. Now was not the time to have push for a second referendum. It was all about extending Article 50, and Labour MPs would be whipped to abstain, sit on their hands and not vote for Sarah Wollaston's amendment to the main motion. And of course, what do you know? The vote falls down. Only 85 MPs, some of them, of course, Labour MPs defying their own whip, and that's we're getting the result now.
We're going to cross the House of Commons to get the result.
The ayes to the right, 412. The noes to the left, 202.
Thank you.
The ayes to the right, 412. The noes to the left, 202. So the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Unlock.
And by a big majority, Theo Usherwood.
Huge majority for the government. Theresa May's motion passes by 210. The May motion 412 versus 202.
Chaos and some
We're going to listen to
defeats.
Jeremy Corbyn now responding.
All of us now have the opportunity and the responsibility to work together to find a solution to the crisis facing this country, where the government has so dramatically failed to do so. We've begun to hold meetings with members across the House to find a consensus and a compromise that meets the needs of this country. But the last few days have also put a responsibility on the Prime Minister. That's right. First, to publicly accept that both her deal and no deal are simply no longer viable options. And secondly, to bring forward the necessary legislation to amend the exit date.
Jeremy Corbyn's saying this, and the Prime Minister's not actually there. You'd have thought when she gets the odd victory, she might like to turn up, really. It's rather surprising.
Can be agreed based on our alternative plan.
Theo, very interesting. I mean, there's Corbyn there talking about problems that the government have got, but Labour have got some real problems over all of this. A resignation today, I believe.
Yes, Ruth Smeeth has voted. She voted against a second referendum because, of course, she's in Stoke. She was the parliamentary private secretary to the deputy leader, Tom Watson, a junior role on the Labour front bench. The order had come down from the Labour Whip's office that they needed to abstain in that vote, the Wollaston amendment, but she didn't want to. She voted against the Wollaston amendment to hold a second referendum in line with the government, and therefore she has had to resign. But it is worth pointing out, of course, that Stoke Central, the seat which she is the MP for, is Leave Central.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Thank you very much indeed, Theo, for that. Well, all in all, a much better day for Mrs May, and not just the votes in the Commons, but what's been happening in the corridors. Look, you know my opinion. I hate this deal. I think this new treaty is even worse than the one we're currently in. And I know a lot of MPs feel the same way, but there's been a shift taking place today. I'm absolutely certain of it. And Theo, from what I can understand, if the Tory party was told next week, if you vote for this agreement and it passes, once the bits and bobs have been done afterwards, the legislation post-March the 30th, that Theresa May would resign, she would then win the vote. Would you believe that to be true?
That's where we're heading. That's the direction of travel. That's where this is going, Nigel. We know that the Attorney General has been meeting with members of the European Research Group, has been meeting with the DUP. The focus over the last couple of days has been on trying to find a ladder from which they could climb down, because of course both the DUP and the ERG had looked to his legal advice following the revised deal that May brought back from Brussels late on Monday night, and of course the Attorney General Geoffrey Cox stood up and said that the legal position had not changed. Now, rather than looking at the withdrawal agreement and any changes, the unilateral declaration that Mrs May secured, they're now going to actually look at a much older piece of international law, the Vienna Convention, which Article 62 says that any sovereign country can withdraw from an international treaty if the circumstances fundamentally change. Yeah. And the argument that is being put forward is that if the European Union go into negotiations on the future arrangements to solve the problem of the Northern Ireland border in bad faith, that would amount to exceptional circumstances which would allow the United Kingdom government of the time to simply withdraw from the agreement that has just been struck.
It's clearly tempting people, isn't it?
They need something. And now the question is whether that part of the Vienna Convention can be written into a revised legal document provided by the Attorney General, Geoffrey Cox. So in effect, he changes his legal advice to say that if the European Union acts in bad faith, then OK, fine, we can scrap it and we can get out of it. And of course, the other option is that another change of circumstances would be that there is a different Prime Minister, that there is a different government. And if that happens, would there therefore be that justification to withdraw from the agreement that we strike with the European Union? Now, from the European Union's point of view, they need to sort of look up in the air, find some trees to gaze at, nothing to see here, and ignore what has happened. Of course, if Donald Tusk was to make a big fuss about the idea that we're going to use the Vienna Convention to get out of the withdrawal agreement, then it could bring the whole thing down.
Yeah, but I can see there's a direction of travel there. People are now looking for excuses, or some of them, to vote for it. In the end, it could be the DUP that decide all of this. Let's go to Raj, a first-time caller from Harrow. Raj, good evening.
Hi, how are you doing, Nigel?
I'm all right. So is Brexit dying? Is Theresa May's premiership dying? Is the second referendum dying? It looks like it is, actually.
Well, yeah, I mean, things are moving quite rapidly. As of yesterday, I would have said Brexit was dying. But as things I'm hearing what are happening at the moment, I'm not sure where it's all heading. What I was going to suggest is I think let it slip away, go for a general election. If the Brexit Party was to stand, I'm confident that most of the 17.4 million people who voted to leave would vote for Brexit. And assuming 50%, you get 9 million. If that happens, you could potentially win. Even if you didn't win, you'd get so many MEPs into the European Parliament that it would be disruptive for them.
Well, Raj, I think if we get an extension beyond May the 23rd, we will have to contest those European elections, and a lot of people in London don't want that to happen. There's a growing number in Brussels that don't want that to happen, because I think in those circumstances, something like the Brexit Party could do phenomenally well. In a general election, something like the Brexit Party could get a huge number of votes, Raj, and not many seats. And that's the great difficulty. Changing British politics, breaking the dominance of these two parties is very difficult, isn't it?
I agree. I must admit I didn't take the seats into account. But if even having the large number of votes would still be disruptive in this country.
It'll be disruptive, and it's one of the reasons why. It's one of the reasons why, Raj, you've got to answer the front door, of course, by the sounds of it, but it's one of the reasons why, I think we're beginning to see the Tory party unite, because they're scared of another party coming along and nicking their votes like UKIP did in very large numbers just a few years ago. You're listening to The Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:30 in time for the news with Lisa Aziz.
MPs have voted for a delay to Brexit. They've supported tonight's government motion to ask the EU for an extension to the UK's current departure date of the 29th of March. Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn's just given his response and also his demands now to Theresa May.
First, to publicly accept that both her deal and no deal are simply no longer viable options. And secondly, to bring forward the necessary legislation to amend the exit date of the 29th of March. Tonight, Mr. Speaker, I reiterate our conviction that a deal can be agreed based on our alternative plan that can command support across the House.
Earlier, MPs rejected a series of amendments calling for a second referendum and delays to the withdrawal process. The Labour MP Ruth Smeeth has resigned from the party's front bench for voting against another ballot rather than abstaining. LBC weather: cloud, heavy rain and strong winds moving in from the west tonight. Showers easing in northern England and Scotland, a low of 2 degrees.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Weekday mornings from 7. LBC.
Rudderless, clueless and hopeless. The government lurches from crisis to crisis over Brexit. Housing Minister and Conservative MP for North West Hampshire, Kit Malthouse. What should happen to the revolting ministers?
That will no doubt be sorted out today. I'm not going to comment on that.
So there will be sanctions?
I don't know.
I just said it will be sorted out.
No, there will be discussions today. I have absolutely no doubt. I haven't yet been in...
Well, we could discuss, but we discuss all day long. We want action. Action this day.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast.
With Xero. Get your business digital ready with Xero accounting software.
LBC.
Imagination can take you anywhere. To the beauty of the Baltic or the wildlands of Alaska. Imagination lets you dance in Buenos Aires, dine in Barbados, and discover ancient Rome. Imagination can take you anywhere. But Cunard will take you there for real. Escape the everyday. Every day, with a little extra from us. Discover more at cunard.com.
I have made a will, and no, we haven't talked about it openly. But it does need talking about. Trouble is, I'm up north and Mandy's down south, and when I see her, we tend to do family things and go out with the children, and then all of a sudden I'm going home again. I think, I haven't talked about that. Next time. I don't know why she's not talking about it. Well...
It isn't easy talking to your family about money, but it is important. The M word from Lloyds Bank. It's good to talk about money.
Where are we?
The New Forest.
But I thought we only had the Mini Countryman booked for a test drive.
We can't stay here.
We're not going to.
This isn't exactly what I meant.
Relax. With Mini's new 48-hour test drive, you can use the Countryman for exactly what it's built for. Exploring. Plus, it's an SUV, the largest Mini in the range, so you can pack loads more in.
Great. Where next?
Well, you know how you've always wanted to try kayaking?
The Mini Countryman 48-hour test drive. Visit mini.co.uk to book yours. Mini. Who's in? Test drive subject to status and availability. Terms and conditions apply. Participating Mini retailers only.
Are you buying a new home? Your mortgage company may just value from a desktop with no surveyor ever visiting the property. WeDoSurveys.com can help you choose the right property. As MAP Chartered Surveyors since 1983, we inspect around 10,000 properties every year. Visit WeDoSurveys.com for a free consultation and free Rick's Guide to Home Surveys. WeDoSurveys.com, your friend in the property business.
Vitality Health Insurance.
Oh, hi. Is it true if I join Vitality I get de facto 5-star rated cover, can speak to a GP 24/7, get rewarded for staying active with things like Starbucks coffee, get a little sausage dog to live with me, and you could beat my current premium by up to 10%?
Absolutely. Except one of those.
It's the dog, isn't it?
Yeah.
Time to review your health insurance. Just search Vitality Health. Vitality. Positively different. Minimum monthly premiums, terms and conditions apply.
Reasons to be cheerful. 1, 2, 3.
BT Mobile have something for you. We can help you save your precious mobile data. Anyone with us has access to 5 million Wi-Fi hotspots, which is more than any other provider. If you're not with BT Mobile, maybe it's time you were. BT Mobile gives back more.
Reasons to be cheerful. 1, 2, 3.
BT. Be there.
To verify, visit bt.com/moreplaces.
Can I have chemo at home?
It's only suitable for a couple of types of cancer.
Type of treatment. So literally just
When you search one question about cancer, you end up with millions of results which contradict each other. For clear and uncomplicated information, come to Cancer Research UK. Visit us online or give us a call on 0808 800 40 40. Cancer Research UK. Together, we will beat cancer.
Escape the everyday. Every day. With complimentary money to spend on board from Cunard. Conditions apply. Atoll protected.
Leading Britain's conversation. LBC, The Nigel Farage Show.
Dramatic scenes last night in the House of Commons as the government lost and MPs voted to stop a no-deal Brexit at all costs. And the world said it was the day that Brexit had died. And hey, Harold Wilson once said a week's a long time in politics. Take a day. And this afternoon, Mrs May is having a better time in the House of Commons. Her main motion today saying she would need a short extension to Article 50 if her withdrawal agreement passes to get the necessary legislation through, has passed by a majority of 210. And I think what we're seeing today are an awful lot of very worried Eurosceptic MPs, because if the divorce deal is rejected again, then she will go to the European Summit next Thursday, seek an extension. They will want quite a lot of money for that extension. They might even want her to promise at the end of the process another referendum, which is tough for her to do, and it would open up the prospect of the European elections being contested in this country by parties that could give both the Conservatives and Labour a really hard time. And for all of those reasons, we're beginning to see MPs moving back towards saying, we hate the document, but we might support the government. My view, I look at that treaty, I think it's so awful. I think they should go on taking the risk of voting it down in the hope that we get a no-deal Brexit, even though the Commons voted against it, but the law still says we can. Now, somebody else who's been talking about Brexit, and these circumstances are extraordinary, because President Trump today was in the White House and his guest was the Irish Premier, the Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar. There is no more pro-EU leader in the world than Varadkar. Well, maybe him and Macron are on about a par. Trump, as you well know, supported Brexit, and he's really not said an awful lot about it. But today, oh boy, he did.
I'm surprised at how badly it's all gone from the standpoint of a negotiation.
But I gave the Prime Minister my ideas on how to negotiate it, and I think you would have been successful. She didn't listen to that, and that's fine. I mean, she's got to do what she's got to do, but I think it could have been negotiated.
The relationship's not great at the moment,
frankly.
is it?
I hate to see everything being ripped apart right now. I don't think another vote would be possible because it would be very unfair to the people that won. They'd say, what do you mean you're going to take another vote? So that'll be tough. But I thought it would happen. It did happen. And both sides are very, very, they're cemented in. It's a tough situation. It's a shame. Frankly, it's a shame. There was no reason for that to happen. They could have had the vote, and it should have gone smoothly. Unfortunately, it didn't. Very complicated issue. And actually, the issue on the border of Ireland is one of the most complex points. Well, I think they're going to probably have to do something because right now they're in the midst of a very short period of time, the end of the month, and they're not going to be able to do that. So it's going to be. But I'd like to see that whole situation with Brexit work out. I'd like to see. So we're talking to them about trade, and we can do a very big trade deal with the UK. We're also renegotiating our trade deal with the European groups and, literally individual nations and also with the whole. But it's very sad to see what's happening there. And there was no reason, and I'm sure, Leo, you agree with that. Do you have any feeling on it? Would you like to express your feelings on Brexit?
Yeah, well...
Maybe I should not let you do it.
We have a different opinion, President. I regret that Brexit's happening, and the UK was a really important part of the European Union, but they're going now, and that's their decision. But the most important thing for us in Ireland is that their decision to leave shouldn't cause any problems in Northern Ireland, where people actually voted to stay, and that we shouldn't have a hard border or anything to disrupt the peace process. And also we want to make sure that we still have frictionless trade between Britain and Ireland, because I believe in free trade, and I think it'll be a few years until the United Kingdom sorts itself out. But in the meantime, the European Union is available to talk trade with the US.
And we're talking about trade with the European Union. They've been very, very tough over the years. They were unwilling to negotiate with the Obama administration, and they were unwilling before that, to be honest. I'm not just blaming President Obama. But they're willing to talk to us, and if they don't talk to us, we're going to do something that's going to be pretty severe economically. We're going to tariff a lot of their products coming in because the European Union treats us very, very unfairly. I have to say that. Very, very. They treat the United States, and they have been for many years, for decades, they've treated us very unfairly. So it'll probably work out. They're negotiating. They want to see if they can get. Otherwise, we're going to do something that's going to be good for the United States.
Well, he didn't quite say Happy St. Patrick's Day, Mr. Varadkar, which is coming at the weekend. But so Trump there, and really, I mean, he is a complete Eurosceptic. He loathes the European Union. You can tell from all the comments he made. And he's been pretty critical there, hasn't he, of the way the British government have handled the whole Brexit process. It should have been done and dusted. Interesting. But to be done with Varadkar in the room was quite something. So is Brexit, is it the week Brexit died? No, folks, it isn't. What we don't know is what kind of Brexit we're going to get. Clearly, support for a second referendum is collapsing in the House of Commons. I think it's collapsing in the country. The question is, of course, is Mrs May's deal really Brexit? Well, in name it is. In reality, I don't believe it is. Steve is a new caller from Bournemouth. Good evening, Steve.
Hi, Nigel. Hope you're well.
I am well. So how's Brexit going, Steve? Come on.
Terribly. I've honestly, over the last few days, I've seen better managed and better behaved debates in a nursery school, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
I voted leave, and I support a lot of what you've said for a long, long time now. But I think the UK government have made themselves look so bad over the last 3 years. We look absolutely ridiculous. And the EU, to be honest with you, look like an absolute stable, united entity compared to how the UK government look. And it really doesn't do this country any favours whatsoever.
No, and so, Steve, you're another caller picking up on the point. I mean, do you think the way MPs are behaving in the chamber actually sets a bad example?
It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. They shout over each other. I mean, I'm no fan of Theresa May, but to be fair, the woman had lost her voice. Therefore, it is only natural and normal to allow her to speak without shouting directly over the top of her, and that's what everyone was doing from her own party and from the Labour Party and from everywhere else. And it was very difficult for her to even put a sentence together before she was being shouted directly over, and
Yeah,
we wouldn't want that for anyone, you know?
OK, no, Steve, made your point, made it well. Now, Chris in Ottershaw, I was talking about Brexit. You know, is her deal really Brexit? He says if her deal goes through, Brexit is dead. As we already know, her deal is worse than what we already have. And Chris, that is still my position. That is still my position. I'd much rather risk extension because I just think this is the wrong deal. But, as we've heard, there are some people now being tempted with, OK, we'll vote for her deal. And what we'll do is we'll get a new leader of the Tory party who will say that if they become leader of the Tory party and Prime Minister, they'll use Article 62 of the Vienna Convention to basically tear up the treaty that's just been agreed. That is tempting some. Mark is a new caller from Heathrow. Good evening, Mark.
Hi, Nigel. Wow, I've waited ages to speak to you, mate.
Well, you're on now. Welcome. I'm sorry.
I back you and all the other guys, and I also back your mate, Mr. Trump. He's very correct about his scepticism with the European situation.
Well, he certainly is sceptical. So, Mark, if Mrs. May's deal goes through, is that it? Is Brexit then done? Should we be happy?
Yeah, this is a sellout of Britain. This is real treason, mate.
Is it?
Real treason, because once her deal goes through, she's actually handing sovereignty of the people over to Europe. We'll lose the Magna Carta completely, the People's Charter completely, and they'll just own us, mate, as cattle.
So would you then, Mark, rather that MPs next week voted down her deal and have an extension, not leave on March the 29th, and perhaps fight this battle again? Would you rather do that?
Yeah, I'd rather we leave full stop. I mean, Steve Baker, it's a complete deception that there was no other deal than hers. Steve Baker, in a parliamentary interview, said that we were offered a Canada Plus deal.
We were.
And she turned it down and said, no, we're going to keep them as slaves for you.
Mark, 7th of March last year, Donald Tusk said, what about just doing a free trade deal? And you're quite right, she turned it down. Mark, strong views, strong language from Heathrow, but hey, passions are running high, including in the House of Commons chamber, and a lot of you don't think they're behaving very well. This is Nigel Farage on LBC at 6:45. Time for the news headlines with Lisa Aziz.
MPs have decisively voted for a government motion to ask the EU for an extension to the UK's current withdrawal date of the 29th of March. President Trump says America anticipates agreeing a very big trade deal with the UK after Brexit. Families of those killed on Bloody Sunday in Londonderry say they're disappointed one ex-British paratrooper is being charged with murdering two men. LBC weather, cloud, heavy rain and strong winds moving in from the west overnight, a low of 2 degrees.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. It stays slow on the M20 eastbound after the removal of Operation Stack earlier from Junction 8 for Leeds Castle to Junction 9 for Ashford. All the lanes are back open again. There were delays on the M25 clockwise. The entry slip road at Junction 23 for the A1M is closed because of an accident. There were long delays in Tottenham. Watermead Way is closed in both directions because of a police investigation between the Hale and Burdock Road. In Walthamstow, Lee Bridge Road is closed in both directions. That's because of an accident from Bromley Road to the Baker's Arms, so there are queues on the approach. There are also queues on the North Circular northbound from the Barking flyover to the Ilford flyover after an accident earlier, and there's still no Woolwich ferry. That's because of the strong winds.
This is LBC.
I'm making this Farage phone system my business. Let's go through it again.
I'll have it set up for you in a few hours.
At 11:14 exactly. Seamlessly flip your call from your desk phone to your mobile.
14:23. Pop up Mr. Brown's Salesforce data when he calls.
16:05. Simultaneously video call you and Mr. White.
Okay, let's do this.
Make Vonage part of your entourage. A business-ready phone system from just £9 a month. To find out more, go to vonage.co.uk. Terms apply.
Vonage. Sounds like good business to me.
Can I have chemo at home?
It's only suitable for a couple of types of cancer.
Type of treatment. So literally just
When you search one question about cancer, you end up with millions of results which contradict each other. For clear and uncomplicated information, come to Cancer Research UK. Visit us online or give us a call on 0808 800 40 40. Cancer Research UK. Together, we will beat cancer.
I'm Peter Jones. I've worked with many businesses. They're all different. So why be shoehorned into accounting software that treats all businesses the same? Sage Business Cloud is different. It fits your business's ever-changing needs, like preparing for making tax digital. With Sage, you're good to go. Business is about making wise choices. It's about being sage.
Be ready for Making Tax Digital. Sign up for a free MTD consultation at sage.com/MTD.
Landlords, Direct Line guarantees to beat other insurers' renewal premiums for the same cover. Can your insurance do that? Switch to Direct Line Landlord. New customers only. Qualifying criteria apply. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
Have you had an operation that has left you with persistent pain around the healed scar? You may feel this pain as burning, aching, shooting, throbbing, or stabbing. At St Pancras Clinical Research, we're looking at a new potential treatment for this pain, which we apply topically. The study will take place in London, and if you volunteer, you'll be paid for your time and reasonable expenses. Find out more at stpancrasclinicalresearch.com. That's stpancrasclinicalresearch.com.
If, like me, you own a micro business or run a charity with a van or minibus that's polluting the air, you might want to listen up. I've just been told about the Mayor of London's new scrappage scheme. They said I could receive £3,500 if I scrap my van, which I could then use to trade up to a new Euro 6 vehicle. Or £6,000 if I scrap my van, which includes £2,500 towards the running costs if I go electric. I said to them, if this is going to help improve the toxic air for my children, then I'm in. So, when I get home, I'm going to search scrappage scheme to see if I'm eligible. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
A good cup of tea can fix everything. Well, possibly not your broken boiler, but Trusted Trader are always on hand to help. TrustedTrader.com have lots of really lovely tradespeople who are vetted, reviewed and reliable, so you'll have your pick of a great bunch. Simply pop the kettle on and head online to find a professional in their trade, including that heating engineer. See, a cup of tea does fix everything.
If you choose Superfast Fibre from BT, you not only get our most powerful hub, you get to choose another bit of kit worth up to £179. We're talking an Amazon Echo, a Fitbit Charge 3 or a Samsung Tab A10.1. Get Superfast Fibre from $29.99 a month on an 18-month contract with a $29.99 setup fee. Make more of your broadband and have some tech on us. Search BT Broadband and join by 14th of March. BT, be there.
Prices may change. New customers £37.99 for month 19. Terms apply.
This is LBC, the Nigel Farage Show. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Tweet at LBC using the hashtag Farage on LBC.
So the government today win their motion that says Article 50 can be extended out until the 30th of June if her deal goes through. But if her deal doesn't go through, she'll go to the European Council next week and ask for an even longer extension. So it looks, folks, although we won't actually be leaving at 11 p.m. on the 29th of March, despite the Prime Minister telling the House of Commons over 100 times that we would be. Matthew is calling from New Forest. Good evening, Matthew.
Hello, Nigel.
So it looks like we're either going to get, Matthew, a long extension or a short technical one. Do you think that's a good thing?
I think a long extension would be better.
Go on.
Basically, in 2016, the Leave campaign specifically said there was going to be a deal. And that's effectively what people have voted for, a deal. You said...
Hang on. I didn't vote for a deal, Matthew. I voted to leave.
So why on question time did you say we could be like Norway or Switzerland?
I said Norway have their deal, Switzerland have their deal, and we're going to have our deal. Of course. The difference is Norway's 5 million and we're 65 million.
Yeah, okay. And so why did the majority of Leave campaigners in 2016 all say there was going to be a deal?
Because what they wanted was a free trade deal, and what's confused all of this, and frankly, Matthew, whatever side of the fence we're on, what's made an absolute dog's dinner of the whole thing is Theresa May. Let's be honest about it. She didn't want a simple free trade deal. She wanted a complex, close relationship.
Yes, well, a free trade deal, you still might need things like border checks, because the only way to avoid border checks is to have the same custom alignment like rules.
Well, yeah, but the point is, Matthew, that if you leave a club you've been part of for 43 years, for the foreseeable future, you are going to be in regulatory alignment. There could be divergence over time, and I accept that.
And if you've been in it for 43 years, there's going to be lots of ties with that club, Nigel, lots of transport connections, lots of other things, which is going to make it very complicated to leave. It's not as simple as you keep on saying.
But Matthew, we made a decision. We were told that the sky would fall in. We were told 500,000 jobs would go. We were told it'd be a disaster. And Matthew, we made it, despite all that was said on both sides of the argument, all right? Despite all that was said, we made a decision. And my frustration or annoyance is, having made that decision, our Parliament has spent much of the next 2.5 years frustrating us.
Well, they haven't frustrated it. If the Leave campaign had specifically said one type of deal, instead of some saying a Canada deal, some saying a Norway deal, some saying different things, then if they had made it clear the kind of deal they wanted, the government could have negotiated that.
Well, Matthew, there was no clarity on what leaving would be or what remaining would be, because these are both dynamic, changing things. What I would argue very strongly is that when we did vote to leave, every senior figure on both the Leave and Remain side said we would be leaving the Single Market and Customs Union. And that, I think, is where the agreement is. I mean, Matthew, what do you want a long extension? Do you think into that long extension there should be a second referendum? Is that the reason you want a long extension?
I feel we should have a vote on the deal, not Leave versus Remain, but a vote on the deal.
OK, so what would the question be then?
That's for the Electoral Commission and the government to decide. I don't know what the question would be, but I feel there should be a vote on the deal, and that's what people are muddling up. People are saying it's a second referendum, Leave versus Remain. It's not just a second referendum. It's a referendum on the deal. So it's not betraying democracy.
All right. So it would be her deal versus WTO or something like that.
Her deal or a renegotiated deal.
Do you know what, Matthew?
What?
I just don't think the public wants this. I just think the public wants this done and dusted, doesn't it?
Well, but people keep on saying let's just do it. But if we do it now without getting the public's consent again, you're just going to hear years and years of this, because it's going to go on to the next set of negotiations for a trade deal, and people are going to keep on hearing about it, and they're going to get more and more fed up, and you're going to get fed up, Nigel. And the best thing really to do is to get it all sorted out now.
OK, all right, you've made a passionate plea for you say it's not a second referendum, but a referendum on the deal. You've made your point, Matthew. Thank you. And I get on Twitter, what happened to we will be leaving on the 29th of March? Yeah, over 100 times she said it. No deal is better than a bad deal. Never meant it. How about any Prime Minister would be better than the one we've currently got? Well, I do agree with that. Is it the week Brexit died? Clearly not, but it just may not be the sort of Brexit I want, is what I think. Dave is a new caller from Slough. Good evening, Dave.
Good evening.
And welcome.
Thank you. I voted for Brexit, and I'm pretty angry with the Tory party for making an absolute dog's dinner of the whole thing.
Yep.
Very angry with the Labour Party for having not a clue what they're doing, and the Liberal Democrats for completely being undemocratic. But the only way it now appears, and I think people knew it at the time, was to get a successful Brexit. The only way to do it is to go to WTO rules and offer the EU a free trade deal. Now, they would have to accept, because we buy more from them than we sell to them, which means that if they didn't accept a free trade deal, they would effectively be paying us money, and they can't afford to do that. But there's no way. Not only have our own government decided to rule out WTO, but we would never get it anyway, because if we ever looked like we were going to go to WTO, the EU would step in right at the last second and offer us a deal which is almost the same as what we currently have, just ever so slightly better. And our MPs would be so frightened by WTO that they would immediately sign up to it, including anything it had in that. So it's bound to be as bad as the one that they currently got.
What you're saying, Dave, is that this whole thing has been a failure of leadership and negotiation.
Well, yes, but the question then is, what should we do from here? What should Brexiteers do from here? And I think what they should do is accept that Brexit is going to be a failure, if they carry on with it. And they shouldn't accept a failure of Brexit because it will be in their name. What they should do instead is get behind not having this deal. Mm-hmm. They know they can't have WTO, which means the only thing to do is either revoke Article 50 and then eventually, if support rises for, let's say, your Brexit party, like it did previously for UKIP, or something similar, then we go for yet another referendum.
I tell you what we're not going to agree on, Dave. You know, even if some on the Leave side are now saying to me, let's have a second referendum and win it decisively, and some are, even if we did that, the idea that we want to revoke Article 50, I don't think any Brexiteer would ever go for. I thank you. And Irene says, how many of the EU27 do you think will veto the extension? We'll talk about that on Sunday morning. I'll be back at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning. At 10 tonight's Tom Swarbrick. But up next, it's Ian Dale.
I thought we might just chat away for the next hour, Nigel. I think we could probably entertain the listeners with that.
I think we probably could. I think